from Simple Simon and Company, and today we are going to go over how to use cutting mats, cutting rulers, and rotary cutters to make our cutting go a little bit quicker. Seems like every time I go to make a quilt, there's a million pieces that I need to cut out, squares of all shapes and sizes, and today we're going to walk through how to use some of these tools to make our process go a little bit quicker and be safe while we're doing it. So I'm going to move my quilting squares aside, and I want to show you a couple of different tools. There are a million rotary cutters out there to choose from, so I have a few to show you. So this is a pretty standard rotary cutter. Most of them have a safety button on them. The safety button is what keeps your blade from engaging. So when I take the safety off, when I put pressure on the handle, my blade will engage and it will come out. Now your blades are very sharp, way sharper than a pizza cutter, even though it looks like a pizza cutter. So once your blade is engaged, anytime anyone puts pressure on it, your blade will come out and be engaged. And that allows you to cut your fabric. So if you are not cutting your fabric, I always recommend to keep the safety on. And then that way, if it gets bumped, no one will be able to come through and get cut on it. So here's this one. This is a pretty standard one a lot of people use. Here's another one that's a little fancier that has a little bit more protection with it. When the safety's off and you engage, as you can see that, it moves the little protective piece down. So that's another one that you can use. It's a tiny one. This one's fancy. This one doesn't have a safety. This one makes me a little bit more nervous. But when you push and put pressure as you're cutting, then it will cut your fabric. So it only engages once you're actually putting pressure on the actual blade itself. And then the one that I'm using today is the one that I use all the time. Pop the safety off. When you're ready to cut, squeeze the handle, the blade engages, and you can just cut away. Alright, so I'm going to move this one aside. So this is the rotary cutter that we're going to use today. Rotary cutters work as you're moving, the blade spins, and it cuts your fabric. So I'm going to move this aside. This is the rotary cutter we're going to be using today. Now when it comes to acrylic rulers and guides, there are so many to choose from. There's triangle ones, there's little square ones, tiny rectangle ones, ones that are colored. The one that we're going to use today is my favorite. It's a pretty standard one. It's 24 inches long and it's 6 inches wide. I love this one. There's quite a few to choose from. No one is better than the other. Once you start using acrylic rulers, you're going to find what you like best. And some acrylic rulers work better for different things. There are uses for all of these, but for today, for just basic fabric cutting, we are going to use the big 24 by 6 inch acrylic ruler. So I'm going to move these aside because we don't need those for today. And we're going to talk about a safety glove here in just a minute when we get to cutting, but I'm going to move it aside for a minute so we can talk about cutting mats. Now I have a big cutting mat out here today. It's 36 inches by 24 inches. Now most are only 24 inches wide. That's the standard that most people use, but I've got my big one out today. You can buy them in all different sizes. So this is a 12 by 18. They have colored ones, they have some that are reversible. But the great thing is that they're self-healing mats, so they're a little bit soft. So when you cut through your fabric, they're firm enough that you can cut through those fabric fibers, but they're soft enough that they're not going to leave a lot of marks. Now on mine you can see marks because I use my cutting mat all of the time. Now you'll notice on the cutting mat that you've got numbers across the top, across the side, and across the bottom. These numbers are going to be your measuring marks. Now some people do not ever use their cutting mat to measure with. If you are one of those people, you're going to want to stop watching my video right now because I always use my cutting mat as my measuring guide. I use all of the measuring marks that are already pre-made on my mat as my measuring guide. They're built in, they're right here, they're easy to see, and I love to use them. So you can see like right along here, I've got 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, these are all inch marks. And I'm going to be using those here right now as we're going to get cutting. So I've got my mat. I'm putting it on a flat, level surface. I saw somebody using one the other day on a tilted board. Ooh, it was a bad idea. I was so scared for her fingers. So flat level surface, kitchen countertop, work table, dining room table, great surface to use on. Just flat, stable surface. Lay that out, and you've got your acrylic ruler out here ready to go, and you've got your rotary cutter. Now we're going to take our fabric to cut. Now I have two examples of fabric to show you. If you pre-wash your fabric, that is fantastic. Before you start cutting, if you want to wash and dry your fabric, that's great, but make sure you iron it, because sometimes your fabric comes out and it'll be a little wrinkly. If your fabric is wrinkly and you try to lay it down and just start cutting, sometimes you will cut and you'll get not straight lines because of the wrinkles in the folds. So when you are cutting your fabric, you need to make sure that your fabric is nice and flat. So a lot of times I will actually even iron my fabric before I begin, so my fabric is nice and flat to start with. So you can see that I've ironed this one a little bit. There's still, you can kind of see fold lines, but it's going to be good enough to work with today. Now, I am always cutting 5-inch by 5-inch squares. So today I'm just going to show you how I would cut some 5-inch squares. You can see that I've used a piece of this fabric, so it doesn't have a straight line over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this all squared up. Now there's a few ways to square your fabric. Today I'm just going to use the selvage edge of my fabric. So I'm going to just turn it around, and I'm going to line up the selvage edge of my fabric with one of these lines, because there's lines that go straight across here. So I'm just going to line it up, make it nice and straight. And I'll maybe move it down even one more line. So it's just nice and straight, using my selvage edge, which is already nice and straight. And then I'm going to put my acrylic ruler on top, just lay it flat right on top of my fabric. And I'm going to make a straight cut one line. So then I'm going to have a big, beautiful 90-degree angle right here. So I'm just picking a number. I'm going to pick the number 15. And I'm going to put my acrylic ruler right here on the 15. And I'm going to follow it all the way up and make sure it also hits the 15 over here on the top. So it's the same on the top all the way to the bottom, the same number. Then, this is where I'll decide if I want to use a cutting glove or not. I have friends that swear by cutting gloves. I have one. If you want to use a cutting glove, you can put your cutting glove on. The cutting glove just protects this hand while you're cutting with this hand, because this hand is going to lay on top of your ruler, and you're going to put some pressure on your ruler. Not a lot. If you put a lot of pressure on your ruler, it can go sliding out. So you're just going to put a little bit of firm pressure on your ruler. You're going to take the safety off so you can engage your cutter. I'm going to put some pressure on my handle so it engages. So I'm just going to press, comes out. I like to usually put my thumb up here, just like I'm cutting a pizza. And I'm going to put my blade just snugly against the edge of my ruler. And I'm going to put pressure both on my ruler and on my cutter, not too much pressure, and just cut straight all the way down. And it looks like I didn't put quite enough pressure on. That sometimes happens. If you don't, you can do one more swipe all the way through. Make sure you got all those fibers cut and pull this away. Here's my scrap. I'm going to move it away. And I've got a nice straight line here and a straight line here. I'm going to take my cutting glove off. I don't normally use it. A lot of people do, but I'm just going to take mine off. Now, here's where some people say they don't ever use their cutting mat for this. I always use my cutting mat for this. It's super easy and it's already built in for me. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to, remember I want to make 5-inch squares. So I'm going to go over 5 inches. I started here on the 15. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll be on the 20-inch mark. So that's 5 inches from this straight line. And I'm going to put my acrylic ruler again right on top. I'm going to line up right here on the 20 mark, right down here onto the 20 mark. So it's straight from 20 to 20, touching the lines on both ends. Again, pressure right here, Got my ruler, or my cutter, and I'm just going to cut a little bit of pressure all the way down from one end to the other. Pull it away. I put more pressure on it. I did it right this time. And I've got a 5-inch strip. Now I can take this other piece, move it out of the way, turn this sideways. Again, I've got the selvage edge. I'm going to want to cut it off. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to line. We'll do it back on the 15 since we were using the 15 before. I'm going to just make this nice and straight. There's all these beautiful horizontal lines that run straight across. So all I'm doing is I'm lining up that straight edge right along one of those perfect horizontal lines. Now that it's lined up, in fact, I can move it even closer. Maybe you can see better if I move it closer. There we go. Nice. I just lined it nice and straight along here. And now I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to put it on the 15 again at the top. Lay it along there. I'm going to put it on the 15 down here. So it's on the 15, on the 15. I'm going to take my ruler, the safety's off. I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure here, a little bit of pressure here, and I'm going to cut. Now you notice when I'm cutting, I'm always cutting away. Never cut toward yourself. Always cut away. Don't cut horizontally either. Pressure here, hold on here, and cut away from yourself. Okay, take this off. Now I've got the 3 great edges to my square. I'm at 15. Remember, I want a 5-inch square. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches over on the 20. Line up my acrylic ruler. Line it up, line it up. Little bit of pressure. Take my cutter. Safety's off. Apply pressure. Blade right next to the ruler. Cutting away from myself. And, oops, I didn't go quite all the way through. And pull it apart. 5-inch square. Really easy. I can do that. I can count again and go down. Just move down a little bit more for 5 more inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Give it another quick cut. And I can work my way all the way down that strip, just like that. Super, super easy. Now, if you want to fold your fabric, you can fold your fabric so you can cut more pieces at a time. Totally, you can do that. I don't like to do more than 2 or 3, usually just 2 folds, because your fabric can move and shift while you're trying to cut. So I don't like my fabric to be folded over more than 1 time, so you have 2 pieces. So I wouldn't fold it more than this when I'm making my cuts. Alright, that's it. Super easy, basic tutorial on how to use your rotary cutter, an acrylic guide ruler, and your self-healing mat. Easy peasy. If you have any other questions, you can always find us at simplesimonandcompany.com. See you later. Bye-bye.